What's up, everybody? Welcome back to White Collar Reacts Survivor, season 47. I am your host, D-Bird, and with me, my co-host.
I'm DJB.
Hi, DJB. How we doing?
Hey, D-Bird. I'm good. I'm realizing now I probably should have blurred my background because I have a bunch of Halloween decorations and a Mr. Beer I'm probably never going to use behind me, but I do not condone the drinking of alcohol on
It
camera.
makes you more relatable.
Thanks, man.
Just,
Thanks.
a peek behind the curtain.
Yeah. Yeah.
He's more than just a brilliant, 4D chess level expert on Survivor.
Mm.
He's also a general human with general human household.
Yeah. Thank you for that.
Yeah. What is a Mr. Beer, by the way?
I don't know. So it was my birthday a couple weeks ago, and Pops bought me a Mr. Beer. I think it's like a plastic container with hops and powders where you ferment and brew your own beer. But I think it's quite a process, and I don't trust myself. So I might see if my dad's all right just getting his money back, getting something nice for himself.
I lived with a guy shortly after college who brewed his own beer, and that shit stunk. Like, it just stunk up the entire apartment, left weird stains underneath the sink. But it is a thing that all adult men have to go through, is to try give it one good shot.
He was brewing it under the sink.
Yeah.
Classy. In an apartment.
Yeah, in an apartment we were renting for $800 split 3 ways.
Yeah, I feel like that endeavor reeks of the early 20s, not the 40s. So I think I'm gonna keep it moving.
Fair.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of keeping it moving, this episode 3, found our tribe, after just voting off TK in a surprise move, coming back to camp. Everyone's all kind of high-fiving and talking about, oh, what a great move, except for Kyle, who was left out of the vote.
Mm-hmm.
How weird would it be, DJB, coming back into camp and realizing, like, oh, fuck, I'm the only one who didn't know what was happening?
I think Kyle took it in stride pretty well. I think once you realize that one person flipped, which was Gabe, like he had to know that Tiana just wasn't feeling the TK experience. So like, I don't think I'd be totally shocked if I were him. Of course, like I get to see things he doesn't, obviously, but
Right.
I mean, being in that situation, I don't think it was a huge, huge shock. Or like if it was initially, you'd be able to like reverse engineer it to understand the why. What about you?
Yeah, I mean, I always feel for the people that are coming back, because there's always people that are like stoked about it, and there's always people that are bummed about it. TK just lost his number one, who was admittedly, Kyle just
Kyle.
lost his number one, who is admittedly a dick, but that was his one. So now he has to figure out, okay, how do I work my way back into this group? And we'll see later what he attempts, which I actually thought was really smart. But yeah, he wrote Sue's name down, which then caused her to just generally mistrust everything he says.
Right. And like right away when it panned to her like testimonial and she's like, I'm never going to forgive him. Like, that's really nearsighted. We're 6 days in and you're going to hold a grudge because he had to vote for someone. So it was either going to be you or Caroline. You had to know that.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, I think we'll get more into that and like the blowback from that decision later. But
Yeah.
I was like, Sue, come on, you're spinning way too early.
Yeah, we'll definitely get into that. But after they, kind of show them, they move over to the Gata tribe, who is just been on a string of victories, which means, they don't have to go through the stress of tribal council, figure out like, the how do I do this game. So instead, they're just getting on each other's nerves. Specifically, Annika and Sam are kind of going head to head, and it kind of reached a culmination when he was chopping with a machete this like clothesline, and she's just sitting there like kind of like, no, that's not how we do it. Scientifically and mathematically, you have to smoothly cut. And he's just like, I want to say fuck you, but I guess we'll try it your way, and it works.
Yeah. My favorite part was when she's hanging the clotheslines up. He's like, it needs to be more taut. She's like, well, that's why we're testing it, Samuel. I was like, oh my gosh, she added letters onto his name. That's serious.
You can't.
No, and I had this moment. I was like, you know what? I know what's happening here. Sam is a bro on an island of bras.
Island of bras. Sign me up.
Yeah, well,
but it is true in the sense where he seems like kind of the traditional jock archetype. He's a sports reporter. He very much talks like a sports reporter, and he's got a tribe full of women who have bonded pretty well, and a robot that he's working with.
yeah.
And I did write a note, Andy, while he's watching Annika and Sam go back and forth, he's like, so I was just sitting there gathering data, and then you can gather secondary data based on these inputs. And I was like, what a fucking AI. Our theory that he's an AI is coming true.
Oh yeah, and I think it becomes even more true later. But yeah, I could just picture him like loading like a bunch of ones and zeros into a hard drive, like processing.
Processing. Yeah, so basically this whole issue started because two of the girls, Rachel and Annika, are tired of sleeping on bamboo. They're like, the shelter sucks, we got to fix it. So they kind of nagged Sam to do all the hard work, and he's like, I'm hungry, like we need to get some meat, I'm starving, I'm wasting away here. And they're like, he basically got overruled to work on the shelter.
Right. And it was kind of like that, like just falling into gender norms thing. It's like, hey man, you cut and you carry, we'll tell you how to do it. And he was just not feeling it at all. And he was trying not to eye roll and stuff, but he didn't hide it if the robot could pick up on
it. No. And then speaking of just not picking up or not hiding anything at all, we go over to Rome's team.
Lavo, yeah.
Lavo. And oh my God, I don't think this man can get any more annoying.
Like, right?
Rome is your boy again. Rome is just running around like fucking just dancing around, fucking going fishing with the fishing gear, and he's the only one using it. And then he's like kind of coming back, blaming his team for not like setting up a fire for him and like getting everything perfect. It's like, no one asked you to go fishing for 12 hours.
Right? He's bogarting the gear and then be like, well, no one else is doing it, so I guess I got to. Like, my first note that I took was Rome still sucks. And then my second one was like watching like know-it-all who thinks they do it all is the equivalent of watching tornadoes merge together. It's like the most entertaining disaster you can imagine, right? Like you're just watching it all play out, and it's like this guy's burying himself and he keeps like stumbling into fortunate situations, but he's playing the worst imaginable game.
I can't think of a worse game to play.
Well, Andy.
I mean, man, this season is full of fucking losers. And I say that in like the most like mean way I can.
well, what I don't get is like, so you brought up a point, like he's saying, oh, I wish someone would just make a fire. And like the other tribe mates are sitting there in the ocean. They're like, he's probably thinking we're lazy right now. Yeah. But if you have to brag about your work ethic or tell people how hard you're working, you're probably not about that life. That's not something you typically do. So this is outside his norm. And like day 6, yeah, he's pushing through. He's a juggernaut. But like day 9, I could imagine him just like waffling, like, I don't have the calories to do this.
Yeah. Well, speaking of calories, one of the results of all this fishing he brought back 4, small goldfish that he caught from the sea. And he's like, well, fuck, if I'm the only one that's going to be fishing, I guess I'm deserved of the biggest portions. So he gives 2 little pieces for his tribe mates to share and then eats 2 right in front of his enemy, Asia. And just, there's a moment where he's just like smacking his lips and shit. And then she's like, you got it on my back. You spit fish on my back.
Yeah. He's like, oh, my bad.
Did not give a fuck. Like, again, he's on purpose making enemies. And it just, there's no point to it. And the thing about Modern Survivor now is you have to be flexible. You have to be able to create alliances that weren't there before, right?
And it's just like this cocky bravado he has, even in his like testimonials, or what do you call them? Confessionals, right? He's leaned back up against the rock. He's like, yeah, I'm just playing this game so good, bro. It's just all coming to me. They should call it Survivor Rome.
Oh my God.
No, dude, you're really not playing it good. Like, you fell into some fortune, but the way that you're handling these social situations and just like trying to conduct yourself like a normal human is not normal.
It's not normal. And he even said that at one point in the confessional. He's like, well, I ate this right in front of her because fuck her. She's not part of my alliance. And I was just thinking, like, yeah, until you're going to need her, right? Like,
right.
This game changes so fast.
So Saul and Asia clearly hate him. There's like complete disdain. And then I think his alliance, like, they're just begrudgingly tolerable of him because they know that they can't immediately get him out. And that's the only reason why. It's not like Teeny's sitting there saying, I really want to rock with Rome. It's like, I know I can't do anything about Rome this week or maybe next week, so I'm just going to swim alongside him.
Yeah. And we'll get into that a little further down once they have to kind of explore those options. But pretty soon after Rome is being annoying with the fishing, a boat shows up and it's journey time. So they choose who goes on the journey. I thought it was kind of strange choices, to be honest. It was Kyle, who was kind of like a lone wolf on his team. I don't know why you'd send him, who needs like an advantage the most.
Right. That didn't make any sense to me.
And then Rome, obviously, because that guy's like, I have to do everything. And you're just like, all right, dude, fucking exhausting. I think Saul tried to rock, paper, scissors him and he lost.
Loser.
Yeah, a loser. And then the other one was Annika. Annika from Lavo.
So, they picked rocks or something, didn't they? No, that was a Gata. Which I always want to say Gata, like off of what's the Will Ferrell flick? No, not Dave. No, that's a good Gata too. But no, the one where he was a detective. Samuel L. Jackson, The Rock, like, thinking what I'm thinking, aim for the bushes. Good guys.
Good guys.
Good guys. Yeah. So I always think of Gata when I see Gata. So I'm gonna screw that up often.
I probably will too.
I get it.
I just don't like saying the tribe names. I like to just refer to the annoying people from the tribes.
Fair.
But so they all go there, and immediately the second toes are touching the sand, they are like spreading misinformation. At least Rome is. Everything he says is just like, oh yeah, Sol and Asia are like running the tribe, blah blah blah, like target, right? And I also thought it was funny. They specifically cornered Annika and were like, yo, Sam and the hot one, are they like dating? they're like, yeah, that prettyish one. Yeah, her and the jock, they and she's like, no, they both have fiancés. But it did do an interesting thing with, as soon as she went back and said that, then everyone was kind of like, oh, they are pretty close, aren't they?
Yeah. You know? Right. No, absolutely. And that tribe is super weird. So just to backtrack for a second, going back to our robot friend, Andy.
Yeah.
Still the least strategic player ever. at one point, Sierra and Andy are walking along together, and Andy's
Mhm.
like, "I don't even know how I look. How do I look?" She's like,
Yeah.
You look fine. You have cool like beach hair, or whatever." Like she's clearly just trying to placate him. And then somehow, out of nowhere, just because a pretty girl was talking to him, was like, "You want my shot in the dark? I'll give it to
Yeah.
you." I'll give it to you. She's like,
That's
"No,
right.
not really, but yeah, okay, fine, I'll take it." Like,
That's right. That did happen before they went, before it showed them going on the challenge. I did write notes in here that it showed Sam just talking to the group, and he's saying, "Yeah, I never had pineapple, never had a watermelon." Like
just so
weird.
weird.
And then that's when Andy takes Sierra, and they kind of go off, and he's like, "Oh, this person doesn't trust me. Here, shot in the
Yeah.
dark. You can have it."
Right? It's like weird. It's like he is that robot who's trying to understand emotions, like attention. What is it? Cannot compute. Like,
She's making noises and looking in my eyes. I think
yeah.
she wants something from me.
Exactly.
Uh,
But I think that plays into it because when they go back, now Sam's kind of like this, or not Sam, Andy's this third wheel because he's already given all the goods to Sierra. And so people are seeing them as a voting block or like, being thick as thieves. So a vote against Sam is also a vote against Sierra. And now Andy, no pun intended, is in bed with them too.
mm, yeah. I like that pun, even if you didn't intend it.
Yeah, well,
So this journey is a little different than one we've seen in the past. Essentially, the rules are they have these bags in front of them, and there's a 1 in 3 chance that you pull out an advantage. Uh, the other two things you can pull out are lose a vote. So basically, Kyle and Annika reach in the bag. Fuck, I lost my vote. Uh, should I go for another one? They both choose no. What would you
why?
do in this scenario? That's
I'd
what I would say.
absolutely double down because if
Yeah.
I make it past the first one, then like I'm already screwed, right? So at that point, you're like living on borrowed time. You double down every time.
Yes. And one thing I didn't mention was the reason that they hesitate, because if you do go dip your hand in the bag for a second time and lose a vote again, then you lost a vote for I think 3 tribals.
Mhm.
So it's not just, oh, the next one, it's 3. And they just thought that was too much to risk. I think your odds are better now. You already know 50-50 shot, double down for sure.
Absolutely. I mean, because really the most damning thing is you're eliminated at this next tribal, right? If you're able to make it through this next tribal, you know that you're not on the chopping block. That gives you a whole nother week to finagle and network and put yourself in a position where you don't need to worry about having a vote.
Yeah.
And there's going to be idols that enter the game too. Like there's other ways you could protect yourself. Like I think you have to play for the here and now and not worry about three votes down in a situation like this where you got a 50-50 opportunity to better your game.
Couldn't agree more. So we're on the same page. You know who didn't
Brilliant.
have to always, who didn't have to make that decision? Fucking Rome, of all people. Douchebag McGee pulls out advantage first try, and he's like, yeah, of course I did. Fuck. Why wouldn't I? Everything's going right for this douche, and I hate it.
Yeah.
And so what he gets is a steal of votes. So at the tribal council, he can take some enemy's vote and then make it whatever he wants. So now he has an idol and a steal a vote.
Yeah. And he's just like falling backwards into this stuff. It's like Scrooge McDuck just jumping in a pile of money for no reason.
Yeah. He has no idea how it's happening or why it's happening. It's just happening. And it's good for him.
Yeah. But he's still going to lean back and be like, I just do what I do, and that's what I did. But there's been no, like, I don't know. He shouldn't have a sense of accomplishment because he hasn't really accomplished much. He's been serendipitous, but not like skillfully willing his way to these advantages.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it's like somebody it's like somebody wins the lottery and then says that they were like prepping for this moment all their life. Like, no, you literally just wasted your entire family's money every Sunday going to the corner store. Finally, you hit scratch it for $100, but you've sunk like 10,000 in.
Right. It's going to be interesting because he did the dumbest lie imaginable. Like, so
Mm,
first of all, like, I I'm not a big liar. I'm not good at it. But if I had to, I would save it for an opportunity where it really mattered. But the
mhm.
moment he gets back, he's like, I'm just going to lie to him. Yeah, I lost my vote. It's like, it's really easy when the votes are red to understand that you just lied to everybody and it was
Yeah.
nonsensical. Like it, it was so nearsighted that he would just come up with that lie for no reason. It didn't benefit his game. It didn't push anything along. Like
No.
Sol and Asia didn't have any idols or advantages. I think everybody knew that because he already had the one. Like,
Yeah.
why lie other than just to lie?
I think I've got a theory on that. So I think in his douche brain, he was thinking like, "Oh, I'm gonna show my alliance how loyal I am to them and how much I don't give a fuck about these other people." Right? Like I'm gonna lie to them, but I'm gonna tell you the secret inside because I trust you and oh, we're so tight. So I think that was the move that he was going for. But yeah, he hits the beach, he lies to everyone, and then immediately is like, you know who I should tell though? Tiny or teeny.
The same person who like literally heard the information is like Keyshawn.
Yeah.
Yeah, just round two. It's gonna be better this time for sure.
Yeah, yeah. She's so trustworthy. Clearly, she's very close to me. So she then says, fuck, in the confessional, she's like, God, this guy is an idol. He has a steal a vote. Like, I guess I have to work with him. And honestly, I was kind of like, no, you don't, idiot. Right? Because the core four were her, Saul, Asia, and Keyshawn.
Keyshawn. Yeah.
And they could have voted for Genevieve, right?
Hmm.
They were scared, like, oh, what if he plays his idol for Genevieve? That douchebag's not going to play anything for anyone other than himself.
No,
That,
absolutely not.
that much is obvious. So you could have still had numbers. You could have made a actual gameplay, right? You could have made a huge move by saying, yeah, make Rome waste his idol and get Genevieve out. Now you have 4-on-1.
Yeah. I mean, again, like I hate the idea that people feel like they need to pull along these like weighted blankets just for like extra security when really it's just adding drag to your game. There's I don't see any benefit in keeping Rome because he's going to be such a wild card if you make it to the merge with him that I think he's more of a liability than an asset, regardless of what he has now.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking like, first I want to keep my tribe strong. I want to stay true to my like if I'm teeny, like
Mhm.
Keyshawn's my guy. I think they're thick as thieves. They're gonna be
Yeah.
locked in the whole. I'm thinking I just need Keyshawn and myself to make it, and then I need somebody who's somewhat reliable or has like one iota of common sense to help us through the merge. But like Rome, that would terrify me. Like banking on him for trust or like
No.
gameplay.
That guy's so clearly just out for himself. Like he's like the Donald Trump of Survivor. It's like, how does anyone believe that this man has anyone's interests other than his own?
And
Which I
Saul read
guess
him
you
right.
can, yeah. Oh my God. Well, we'll get into that in a second, but I did want to touch on the other players talking about their experiences to their tribes. So Annika goes back. She lies to the tribe and says, sorry guys, well no, she says, yeah, here's this rules, here's how it's structured. I chose not to play because I didn't want to risk a vote. So she's
Mhm.
pretending she still has a vote, but then immediately tells Rachel and Sierra, yeah, everything I said was true except for I actually lost,
Yeah.
had to play.
And see that lie, I understand you're still gonna figure it out at the votes, but that's to me, that's a lie that's more easily hidden because you could have lost your vote anywhere along the line, like through a beware advantage or something else.
Mm-hmm.
Still, I don't. Oh, hello, puppy. Still, I don't think that lying just to lie is the best strategy.
Got to be strategic with it. Um, and then Kyle, I don't think he had any strategy. I think he was just going back like, I lost my vote, y'all. I think he just told the straight up truth exactly as it was and says, I no longer have a vote and I'm on the bottom. So please don't hurt me.
Honestly, though, like that's the way you play it. Like
Yeah.
he's been straight up. Everybody's like, he's just a good dude. He did it phenomenal on the challenge. Like even though Rome could jump straight from there onto the buoy, he still beat Rome. And like he's at the bottom. So why do you have to rush to get rid of him? I think that was actually maybe unintended, but really good gameplay.
Yeah. I mean, well, it's funny too because so in this scene, um, Gabe is talking about Kyle and how he might be useful after all. He's even like, "Oh yeah, he could be my limousine driver and just he'd fly out to Michigan to do it. Like he would be honored to drive the great Gabe around." I thought that was kind of fucked up.
Yeah. I mean, that's Gabe again, thinking like this feeling of superiority, like everybody else is lesser than. Like I don't like that guy either. This season has three of the least likable people I've ever experienced. Like Gabe's air of entitlement is driving me nuts.
Yes. And I think Kyle did something really smart when he actually went to Gabe's alliance and tried to flip them. The problem was fucking Sue didn't believe him. He literally laid it out. He's like, "Yeah, Gabe thinks Sue and Caroline. You guys are his goats. He's just dragging you along." And he's saying as much in the confessionals, right?
Mhm.
But Sue, who has felt slighted because Kyle just wrote her name down, is like, "Oh, well, I'm not going to talk game with you. Basically, fuck off. I can't trust you since you wrote my name down. Wake up, read the room,
Yeah. No, I mean, I was super disappointed in Sue for that, honestly. And I wonder if like is it Carolyn or Caroline?
I've been saying Caroline, could be Carolyn, whichever one you like.
Caroline.
Dealer's
Um,
choice.
like I wonder where she's at with this because I'm sure Sue's going back to her and telling her. I'm hoping that she could be a voice of reason and help her find some equilibrium because like you're tattooing like something that was just done in passing. Like it was an arbitrary vote. It was gonna go on Caroline or Sue. It landed on Sue. There's no need to create a personal vendetta.
No. And it's Survivor. It's not personal. You make connections, you form people that you're going to vote with for this week and whatever suits your game best. And it is very like old Survivor, this whole notion of like, this is my group forever and I'm riding with them to the end. I respect it a little bit, but also not when it's against all reason and when people are like clearly showing you their colors. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And I can't remember the season, but it was probably like 5 or 6 years ago. They started talking about voting blocks, right? And
Voting
how
block.
things are changing. So it's not necessarily this sense of tribalism that we have, like Lavo is always going to roll together, but it's going to be these voting blocks within tribes because then when you get to the merge, it kind of opens things up again. So if Sue can't figure out a way to see past her name being written down, I think she's going to be her own worst enemy.
Yeah. Yeah. We'll see what happens as the game progresses. Um, so they all kind of tell their various lies to their various teams, and then it's game time. So what was really funny with this, so you start out with this giant platform and you're basically um, in the middle of the ocean going from platform to platform, moving buoys, and then obviously it ends with a puzzle at the very end. um, the first team to win gets a hammock and a tarp. Second team gets a tarp, but no hammock. I thought a couple things were crazy about this. One was Keyshawn admitted he had never swam before he got cast on this show and started learning how to swim 4 months before.
Yeah, I loved it. And they're like, who's sitting out? And they're like, Genevieve. And Keyshawn's right there. He's like, I learned this 4 months ago. We're straight.
Yeah.
And he's afraid of heights. So.
Yeah. And Jeff's like, whoa, what'd you just say? That's the craziest shit. And you're not sitting out when you just learned how to swim? And he's like, yeah, you got to believe in yourself, man. I was like, oh, my boy. All right.
Yeah.
He's definitely more likable.
Yeah, I liked him a lot, but I kind of had this moment where I was like, oh no, he's Johning himself. Like he's too smart. He's too articulate. People are going to figure out that this nerd who could outthink everybody is also going to be able to like persevere and will his way to wins.
Yeah.
So
yeah, you gotta. Well, he did say he's trying to like play a more low key game, so hopefully he can kind of keep it hidden for long enough.
Yeah.
And meanwhile, Genevieve, I thought was funny. She's like on the sit out bench, like looking underneath it, like anything in here, which has happened in past seasons. So like, it's worth a look. I thought that was kind of smart.
For sure. Yeah, I do the same thing, honestly.
Yeah.
If there's ever one of those competitions where you're kind of off by your lonesome on a bench, I'd put my hands everywhere I could.
And some places I shouldn't.
Yeah.
And then the best / worst part was Rome arguing with Saul. So right off the bat, there's this platform, you jump into the water and then go to the next platform, you jump further and then get like the buoy and then go across this balance beam to then deliver the buoy into a basket, which unlocks the next stage. Well, Rome's like, I know I can do this. And Saul's like, let me do this one. Please just like, let me do something for once. And Rome's like, no, I got this. He's like, no, I want to do this. So they get in a little fight. And Rome's exact words were, I'm going to be mad if you mess it up because I know I can do it. Mm-hmm. And finally, like he just berates Saul into giving up. He's like, fucking fine, man. You win. You go. You jump into the fucking water.
Yeah. Like it was just like an exhausted dad who's dealing with a whiny kid. That's what it felt like. He's like, fine, have ice cream for breakfast. Like, I don't have any more in me.
You've been screaming for 20 minutes. Fucking get cavities. I don't give a shit.
Like, he was just done. It's like the juice isn't worth the squeeze at this point. Like, why am I going to go back and forth with this guy who's clearly irrational, clearly has this inflated sense of self? Like, you're not going to win. And by arguing, both of you guys just lose.
Yeah. So I wrote, as far as other notes on the challenge, I did think it was funny that Andy was like, I know I can do every bit of this. And he was just the slowest man ever. Like he really set his team back quite a bit. Mm-hmm. Luckily, people saved him in the end. I also thought the funny part at the end where Keyshawn was having a hard time putting the puzzle together. And behind him, Rome is just like, oh, I know where that goes. Like, I know. Yeah. Like every
he's like, that one, it was two ago.
Can you imagine the backseat driver, bro? I'd be like, shut the fuck up.
He's like every bad stereotype rolled into one.
It's so true. He is so unlikable. Hate it. So eventually, they just can't overcome their differences. They end up losing. Lavo ends up losing. And they all retreat back to go to tribal council. Who even fucking won? Who cares? It was Sam's.
It was
team,
Gata.
Right?
Yeah.
Gata. Yeah, Gata won. Just tearing it the fuck up. And small clap for them.
And then Tuku was 2. And Gabe flexed, but you couldn't tell other than him just yelling because, again, deflated chest.
Yep. So Lavo goes back to kind of figure out, all right, who are we going to vote out? I did think it was funny when Keyshawn was like, all right, well, don't want to, pull a Q, like a callback to when Q was like, fuck it, I'm gone. It's like, does anyone want to leave? And everyone just kind of chuckles and shakes their head. And then, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, very diplomatic way to approach this.
Yeah. Anyone want to go? Yeah. And then basically the vote, it was going to be Saul or Asia. Rome is, kind of a moving with a dictator's pulse. He's just like, yo, I've got an idol. I got all these advantages. Like, it's one of these two motherfuckers.
Mhm.
Teeny, in an attempt to kind of still save some of the friendship with Asia, tries to float the idea of, well, what if it's Saul? And she's like, no, fucking absolutely not. There's no way in hell. So both Teeny and Keyshawn come away with the conversation of Asia. They're like, oh, she's not gonna budge, and honestly, she'd be kind of hard to work with if she's so, shutting down all ideas.
Mhm. Yeah, I went back and forth on that conversation. Like, could Teeny have approached it differently to put themselves in a different position? Like, really out Rome? Like, hey, we're understanding where Rome's at, like, and like getting rid of Saul's a necessary like component of this greater plan. But I don't think she wanted to show all of her cards that quickly. And then Asia just didn't read the room. Like, she had an opportunity and she shot herself in the foot.
Yeah. And I'm sure it's tough. You're starving. You don't know who to believe. Paranoia's coming hard, and sometimes the small interactions that you don't realize that they're actually very big interactions.
Mm-hmm.
She probably came away from that conversation like, yeah, good. I'm glad I painted the target back on Genevieve instead of my ally.
Yeah. I don't know. I kind of wish that Keyshawn and Teeny would have had a more active voice and like a bigger plan. But I think together they're going to be smart enough to do some bigger moves as long as they could stay in the game. Because this was a layup. I mean, it was going to be either Saul or Asia, and I don't think either one was going to push back. But Asia's probably a little bit more savvy than Saul.
Yeah. Well, speaking of savvy, it was really funny when Rome goes up to Saul and just like, yeah, I don't have a vote. This is just what I heard, that it's like Asia. So you don't have to worry, man. And he's like, I didn't ask, but now you're just coming up to me and saying I don't have to worry. Yeah, now I'm worried. Right? Like, out of
Yeah.
everybody to talk to me, you're not the guy that tells me not to worry, you know?
The guy who you've never had a strategic conversation with all of a sudden's like, don't worry, it's Asia. I figured out. He's like, we've been back for like 30 minutes. You figured all this out? You're 99% sure? Really? Like,
Yeah.
how do those odds even work when there's, 6 people on an island? I
Yeah.
can't get to 99%.
And he's just like, I don't know, I don't have a vote. But no, seriously, you're good. And he calls him out. He's like, oh my God. He fucking called him out so hard and like laughed in his fucking face. I wrote this down because Rome, in an attempt to like kind of manipulate, but he's like too dumb to actually be able to do so effectively. In an attempt to manipulate, make Saul feel good, paint the target on Asia, he says, it'd be really cool is if you drew the continent of Asia. Get it? Do you
Mhm.
get it? And then Saul turns it right back to him and he's like, yeah, that would be really cool of me to do that. Like, the most sarcastic fucking, yeah, man, that'd be super cool. I love that moment.
Oh, I love that moment, and then the moment that it's like Rome's montage of getting fish, and like at one point he stabs the little shooter arrow gun, whatever you call
Yeah.
it, into the ground. Like, Zeus with his trident, and he does like this little dance, like, and, and Asia just looks at him and goes, "Oh God," and just starts laughing and shaking her head. Like it's over his head. He has no idea he's like being laughed at instead of with.
Yes. And it's sad. It's genuinely heartbreaking to see someone so clueless live amongst people that hate him.
Yeah,
Hate him.
yeah. And it's been 6 days. Just you can't hold it in that long.
But ultimately, he goes back to Teeny and Keyshawn. I think, yeah, I tricked that fucking idiot. He thinks it's Asia. We're good. We're good. Meanwhile, Saul's like, I read his body language. This guy's so obvious. Yeah, I'm worried about tonight. So they all go around the campfire. I thought it was really interesting that Keyshawn spoke up and dropped a hint, and he's like, I'm still sticking with the core four.
Mm-hmm.
And then kind of eyes start darting around. Asia and Saul at one point kind of look at each other like, should we? And yeah, it was funny. I thought it was going to turn into a live tribal.
Right, like with all the whispering and all that jazz.
Yeah.
You know, this episode seemed to have a little bit less suspense than the first two, where I kind of knew what was going to happen. There wasn't a shock to me. But I think it was just because Teeny and Keyshawn didn't want to make the move at this point and just go ahead and let Rome have his way. So how did the vote shake out? It was Asia went Genevieve, Seoul went Rome, and everybody else went Asia.
So nobody played a shot in the dark.
Right.
Rome played his idol because it was the only time he could. So he just played it for himself. Of course he did. The votes were kind of all over the place. Asia, Genevieve, and Saul all got one vote apiece. And the last two parchments read Asia. So that's how she got out.
Okay.
And then she turns to Saul and she's like, was it you too, Saul? Et tu, Brutus?
Yeah. No, but Saul went Rome, right?
Yeah, Saul did Rome. I think that he knew he'd still have to stick around. He didn't want to make any other enemies. So he's like, I'm probably going to have to work with Genevieve if I do stick around. Rome.
Yeah.
So I think that was actually pretty smart, especially if he had kind of a sense of where the votes were going to lie. Might as well just do it on Rome.
Now I'm wondering if someone tipped him off, and that's why I didn't use the shot in the dark, because going in, you have to know, like if you're Saul, it's gonna be me or Asia, right?
Yeah,
Like
you'd think so.
in that case, would you use your shot in the dark if you're staring down a 50-50, or are you waiting till it's a more definite?
Here's the question I have. Do you only have one for the entire time you're out there?
I believe so.
Yeah. So it's tough to know when to use it, right? Like to your point, if somebody tipped you off that isn't named Rome, that's like, no, seriously, it is going to go to Asia, maybe you save it to use another day.
Mm-hmm.
But also, 50-50 chance, and then what, a 1 in 6 chance?
Yeah.
So you're like, so many, the probabilities, your mind must spin.
Yeah. But I mean, it's single elimination. So like, I think I would struggle if I left and I knew there was some other like pathway I hadn't exhausted yet. Right? Like those people who leave with idols in their pockets.
Dude.
Oh,
I was just going to talk about that last season when 5 or 6 people left with idols in their pockets.
yeah.
And it's interesting now with this era of Survivor where it's like an idol is more of a curse than a benefit at this point if people know about it. Like the second you tell even your closest of Alliance members that you have an idol, it seems like in New Survivor, they start scheming immediately on how to get that out of your hands and back into play for them.
Yeah. Well, because like someone else's fortune is your curse, right? If you're all vying for the same thing at the end, like even if you need them to get you to the end, like you need to have an advantage over them. And if they have one over you, you gotta like really weigh your options. Like, do I want to bring a goat or do I want to, rock with this person who I know already has a leg up on me?
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's the interesting thing, and I think more so now than ever, like, looking at their resumes and that big move is, like, you have to be a risk taker, and you have to make big moves. You can't just rest on your laurels and be like, "I got a core 4, we're gonna move forward together." That's
Yeah.
not enough. You have to turn your
That's
back on
rad.
somebody. Yeah.
I camped for 30 days on a beach.
Yeah. I lost weight. I look fantastic.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting because like I think it's also a much more interesting move. It's a much bigger move if you just don't tell any fucking buddy and just pop it out, save yourself or one of your ally members without anyone knowing.
Mhm.
I think that that's the only way that it really works. Otherwise, you see what happened when Rome, told Teeny and Keyshawn. Basically everyone that's found an idol had to play it immediately to get the target off of themselves. So even Gabe, it's like you used an idol that had no value for you. You just used it to use it.
Mhm.
Vote wasn't even going to you. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I wonder what that is, if it's like this sense of inadequacy where people feel like they have to share, like to show like, hey, I did this. Like I don't get it, but I think I'd be like you, even with like best, my best bud. I don't know that I would want to share it. Like I'd want to save
Yeah.
that and put it in my back pocket in case something really hit the fan.
And if you really are best buds with them, they're gonna be stoked and like shocked, like, oh fuck, you didn't even tell me. I think it would be less of a liability. I don't think they'll be mad as much, especially if they make the jury,
Hmm.
of like, oh shit, he really played that good, you know?
Hmm.
Especially if it's saving them. Surprise, I'm saving your ass,
I
right?
totally agree. Like you need to have a team and a core of people you move with, but the risk with that is if you get to the end game, it's really hard to differentiate different.
Speaking Italian at me? What's up?
uh,
Differentias.
yeah, differentiate yourself from the others and
Mm,
not just say like, "Oh, I went along with the core, but I was the mastermind behind this." Like
right.
that's who was the kid who almost won last season but didn't. Um, Really bright kid. He was from like Nantucket or something,
Oh, yeah,
Charleston or
Charlie.
yeah, Charlie. Like Charlie clearly had the best game in my eyes,
Yeah,
but he didn't do enough to separate himself from Maria, and so no one could tell if it was a Charlie move or a Maria move. So like holding that idol, not sharing everything with everybody does put you in a position to have that like feather in your cap at the end of the game.
yeah. Uh, yeah, that actually pissed me off last season that Charlie didn't win. I was shocked, and so many people voted for the girl that ended up winning. I'm blanking on her name now,
Is it
but
Kenzie?
Kenzie. Yeah, there was a lot of people that voted Kenzie, and I heard that maybe Maria was working against Charlie in Ponderosa, just kind of spoiling him because she was out, and she's like, "No, I did this, I did that." At least the way it was edited, it made it seem like Charlie was actually moving a lot of those pieces and allowed
Mhm.
Maria to take the credit because it brought a target onto her and saw where it led her,
Yeah.
right to shelter, shelter, food, warmth, kicked her the fuck out of the game. So yeah, I just don't understand. Maybe he didn't as eloquently explain why he deserved it. But watching the show, I think he deserved it way more than Kenzie, move
I,
wise.
I agree. So like for this season, so Rome, douche move. It's a motorcycle. Rome and a douche move
F1
did
outside your house?
yeah, he did draw the continent of Asia
You
on his
did.
parchment. Um,
I thought it
So
was so funny.
he's the anti-Charlie. He's not tactful. He's not skilled in making small moves. Do you think there is anybody of that ilk in this season, or is it too early to tell?
I think it might be too early to tell, but I'm getting very strong smart vibes from Keyshawn. I
Mhm.
think he has the understated, like, I'm gonna play a low key game. He has kind of the mind for it. Um, we'll see how it pans out. I am a little bummed that him and Teeny didn't stick to the core four and get Genevieve out this
I
round.
agree. Yeah.
I think that would have been a huge move and a way to accomplish a lot of what they needed.
Yeah. So your pick, Rachel, got almost no airtime this week. Are you still feeling good?
I am. I'm also one of those people that, like, some Survivor nerds on Reddit are like, "Oh, I see the edit. I know who the winner is. Episode 2." I'm an idiot, so I don't know. I have no idea.
I've never known. Yeah.
Yeah, everyone calls it like a winner's edit, and they're like, "Oh yeah, I can see who's gonna win it." I guess I'm an idiot because it just shocks me every time, especially last season. But
Hmm.
yes, I'm still gonna ride or die with my girl Rachel. It does suck that her team's bickering has kind of taken over the storyline a little bit.
Yeah.
I will also say that, like, Sam, I really like him as a player. I think he has funny commentary. He's pretty smart. So I don't know that he's next, quite Charlie level strategic wise. But I can definitely see his social game is
Hmm.
really high emotional intelligence. How he's been able to pull Andy and Sierra in really close.
Yeah.
Now it's just a matter of Annika and Rachel.
Yeah. I can't get a read on Annika. I think she's probably pretty smart herself. I just don't know if her personality is going to grate on other people. Or maybe it's just because I like Sam, so I've like already landed into his camp instead of hers.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Well,
I don't know. I didn't like Sue this week. Sue, if
no.
there was like the hierarchy or the rankings, like she would have dropped a couple spots.
She dipped a couple in my book too. Where do you think about Kyle? I think he got bumped up like one notch in my book.
Yeah, I still think he's in a precarious position. I was actually still pretty high on him at the end of last week, even though he was the lone wolf on the votes. But I think there's something endearing about somebody who just tells the truth and seems like a humble, good dude. And he's clearly athletic. He blew through the challenge better than like
Dude.
an almost NBA player. Um,
Yeah,
so like,
dude. It's just because college didn't know what they were missing. He went
yeah.
all the way through high school.
I think especially like players like this who are able to just like hang around until the merge, like sometimes get a second life.
Yeah, I think he's, like you said, a genuine good dude. From what I can tell, he is sort of strategic in that, like, he saw an opening in the Gabe. Oh wow, Gabe thinks these people are his goats. Let me share this information with them,
Hmm.
right? And it's just like, well, Sue wasn't receptive to it yet, but it shows that he's willing to kind of see different angles and kind of get in where he fits in, right?
Yeah, and that's like a seed planting conversation. Like obviously Sue's still in her emotional mind, so she's not rationalizing the information. But I wonder, like when she does talk to Caroline, when she sleeps on it a couple nights, like does that weigh on her differently down the road? Is she gonna start like over analyzing some of the like douchey, like egocentric, male chauvinistic things that Gabe says? Because that
Mm,
would bother me. I mean, it bothers me as a man. I can't imagine how
yeah,
it'd feel to be a woman listening to him. What did he say? There was hens or something at one point.
yeah, his hens. I mean, he talks down to everybody. He basically called Kyle his limo driver. Yeah, that little bitch would fly out to me and do it.
He'll fly to drive me.
Yeah, yeah. Crazy. Uh, what a dick. This is an interesting season, because it is kind of a family show, right?
Mhm.
And um, I think they lean into that of like, watch with your family, like everyone can kind of enjoy this together. But there's a strong theme of misogyny and sexism, and like there's really shitty dudes, multiple shitty dudes on this season
Yeah.
that don't seem to respect women.
Yeah, and really, like, I tend like, in my real life, I tend to get along with almost everybody. Like, I really don't have many enemies, but I'm struggling this season because there's, like, 4 people I just genuinely do not like, and I don't care for their airtime, and, like, it annoys me, and I don't know, however many miles away, 5,000 miles away from Fiji,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
like, they're bothering me. Like, I don't like Andy just because he's a
yeah.
weird.
Mm.
Can't stand Gabe.
Yeah,
Didn't like TK.
yeah.
Who else?
Rome,
Rome. Yeah, and Rome's just annoying.
unbearable.
Yeah.
I I kind of want to like look up his videos now because I was like, oh, he does kind of what we do on the review show, right? Like
Oh, he
he,
does?
well, I mean, I think maybe he was an esports commentator, maybe.
Mhm.
So he's probably like playing Madden and like talking shit or whatever. So I'm kind of like, I want to see one of his videos just to see if he's that annoying there too. He must be, right?
We'll see. Oh. Some people will connect with it. Like, I can imagine there's tons of kids just slurping their G Fuel and laughing at
Yeah. Oh, he shat on that noob so hard.
him.
You hear what he said? He was like teabagging him after his tackle. Yeah.
Oh, kids.
All right. Well, that kind of wraps it up. Asia is sent packing with a drawing of the continent of Asia because hilarious. And she turned around so hurt to her buddy Saul.
Yeah.
Any other last notes about this episode?
No last notes. I feel like this was kind of one of those bridge episodes. Like, it's going to get us to a more exciting episode next week.
Yeah. Yeah, unfortunately, just they didn't have the balls or the kind of plan in place to get the one that they wanted out, which is Rome. So it just kind of was obvious and kind of a want want at the end.
I agree. I do think next week might be a little bit interesting because you're going to see the fallout from the lies that, like, Rome told very clearly,
Mhm.
with not having a vote. I'm interested to see how Tuku plays out with Sue and Kyle, and if Caroline. I just have this gut feeling Caroline's going to be like, let's look at this logically, Sue. Like, we didn't
Yeah,
just do this ourselves, and just because Gabe was a part of it doesn't mean he needs to be a part of us moving forward.
right. I'm really excited to see what happens with that too. So
Yeah.
tune in next week. We do this every Sunday at 9 p.m. Pacific. As you know, Survivor, as everyone knows that's tuning in, Survivor Wednesdays. So if you want to chat about it, we have the Discord thread. We have the ability to talk in between episodes. Tell us what you think. But next Sunday, we'll tell you what we think for episode 4. Thanks for tuning in.